All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and call the March 26, 2024 board meeting to order. Let the record state that all 6 supervisors are here. To my far right is Mr. Clay Forehand from the Madison District. To my immediate right is Mr. Floyd Thomas from the Mattaponi District. To my immediate left is Mrs. Nancy Long from the Port Royal District. To her left is Mr. Jeff Seeley from the Bowling Green District, and to his left is Mr. Reggie Underwood from the, wow, I'm losing my, yes, Reedy Church, I'm sorry, Reedy Church. I'm having a little bit of a hard time with the district name there. And I'm Jeff Black from the Western Caroline District. At this time, if everyone could rise for an invocation. Heavenly Father, as we come before you tonight, guide us with your wisdom and your strength. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Join us for Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, opening board comments. I will start with Mr. Forehand.
Oh, pass for now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Thomas? Mrs. Long?
I have none.
What? Mr. Seeley?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I guess I'll be the only one then. I just want to thank everyone. We had an opportunity. Mr. Thomas was with me last week. The governor of Virginia was there for the event where we kind of had like our groundbreaking for the Amazon data center that's coming into the county. So Louisa was represented, Spotsylvania, Stafford, and Caroline were all represented there. So want to thank everyone from the staff who helped out with that, Mr. Wilson, and everyone else who was there. So greatly appreciated. Also want to thank Mr. Kevin Whiteman and Mr. Leon Hughes. A couple weeks ago, shortly after our board meeting, I was able to take all of the people that I appoint to, we all have appointments to different positions, Planning Commission. It will kind of take them on a tour of some of the things that we have in the county that some people just don't know about, or maybe don't get a chance to see. So we had some interesting, I think one of the most interesting stops was a bell foundry. I didn't really know much about that. We had a nice, cool kind of bell foundry in the county. So they explained how these huge bells are made, and so really kind of a neat little tour there. So I want to thank Mr. Hughes for setting that up. As well as Mr. Whiteman. Finally, to the board, I don't have it on the agenda, but I do want to bring up the GWRC has been, and Ms. Long and I are on the GWRC. The GWRC has been having meetings about the RTA, which is the Regional, Transportation Authority. We have not attended yet. However, Spotsylvania, who is against it, I believe, and King George is also against it, have been attending the meetings. So I would like to put the discussion. We had said we would put it off, but I would like to have that discussion next meeting about how we plan to. I know that Spotsylvania is still going to those meetings, even though they are object to being part of it, but they are attending those meetings to kind of get updates. So Ms. Long and I guess would like to have some clarity from the board in what direction we would like to go and try to get some information from our state legislatures as well as what they're leaning towards. So I'm going to have that put on the agenda for the next meeting. So just want to let the board know that when you see it, that's why it's there, because those localities are meeting, and I do think that Caroline should be represented. All right, do we have any, that's it for my opening board comments. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, so we are moving right along to number 1, presentations and reports. I think at this time we are ready for the county administrator's proposed 2024-2025 budget. Mr. Cully, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm going to have with me
Ms. Morgan?
the Deputy County Administrator for Finance, Ms. Morgan, to help because I'm in week 3 of coughing.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how far along I'll get before I have to turn it totally over to her. But I will thank her. She's one that prepared. What do I click? Is it just right button? She prepared this presentation for you tonight, and it's much better than what I do, so you can see what happens when you have a young person in technology. Well, Alan obviously has been working in-house with us on that. We've had many meetings on the budget as we've worked our way through with various departments all the way through to where we are tonight. And we still don't know everything because we're still waiting on numbers from the state. She created a vision statement. You've probably seen that on some of our paperwork over the years, and a mission statement. I'm not going to read through all of that, but we do all know we are here to serve the citizens of this county. The FY 24-25 proposed budget is proposed to increase $21,301,263 from FY 24, which would go to $156,646,858, and that's less interfund transfers. You do know we move a bunch of money around. It's not counting that. But that is a 15.7% increase. The proposed general fund, which is what all the major operations of the county are funded out of the general fund, increase in $6,024,561 from 24 to $70,902,545. That's a 9.3% increase. Tamika created this nice dollar bill. Public safety is 35 cents of every dollar. Public education, 27 cents. Public works, 9 cents. General government administration, 9 cents. Debt is 8. Transfers, 4 cents. Judicial, is that 3? Yes. 3. And the community development, 2, health and welfare, and 1, parks and rec, 2 cents. So that's kind of how you would break down the expenditures of where every dollar goes. New positions in public safety. So for 25, we're recommending 9 full-time fire EMS positions. 12 months with their salary and benefits is $828,000, and then the supplies to get them into uniform and PPE, $40,000. And they would be stationed at Upper Caroline, and I'll show you a little bit of potential revenue for that for this year and next from Upper Caroline. Currently, Upper Caroline is not staffed. You remember we did have a 8-hour shift there, 5 days a week, that was paid for by Upper Caroline for 5 years. That's what I was going to guess. 5 years. Chief's got his hand up. But as you remember, back in that time frame, we had a difficult time getting people to want to work at that because the shifts are 24 hours for our fire crews. And so trying to get an 8-hour shift out of that was causing us all kinds of issues and people being staffed up there. As we brought to your attention, and we'll be bringing probably at the April 9th meeting, we need a full-time drug exchange paramedic, and we have found out that what the chief told you about the hospital still doing class 6 exchange, we don't think that's going to happen. So we've gotten more information from Pharmacy Association and various things, but we need to get started on that. He has discovered that everybody else is getting started on that right away to try to get that implemented by the fall. But the cost of that either way, salary and benefits $114,381, and then supplies $63,712, and he's discovered we probably still need another 100 and some thousand to, to be able to get the machinery and the dispensers and all the things that we're going to have to run our hub and spoke design, which is what the other counties are doing as well. We're also recommending 1 full-time sheriff's deputy. That's 12-month salary and benefits, $78,538. Body worn camera, radio, and vehicle expenses is another $77,730. So the total for that is $1,203,647. new positions in the county budget for July 1 full-time IT technician. And this just came about in the last week. The security requirements for elections have increased again immensely, and we even looked at maybe trying to hire that out with the current consultant that the registrar's office uses, but he doesn't have the capacity to be able to take that on. So we feel we're going to have to add another person to the mix just to handle all of the things. On the county side, we've adopted, our security plan and policies and those things, but we can be flexible with ourselves as how fast we implement and try to do those things. The state's not giving us that flexibility on the election side. And so it's becoming the critical piece, election security. So it's not mandated, but you got to do it. So you got to figure out what you may want to call that. The state's not going to say it's a mandate. They've just laid all this extra burden at the feet of everybody with elections. And one groundskeeper position, we want to reclassify that to equipment operator, and that's about $11,900 change in salary. So both of those, salary and benefits, $83,606. New positions requested, but these were obviously requested for the whole year, but I cut them back to January of 25 to try to save some funds. One-time HR generalist, full-time in HR, one deputy director of finance, that was a request of even a year ago. One full-time utility technician, you know how much we've got as far as utility work going on with just all the growth on the western side. In social services, one part-time benefit program specialist, and one part-time utility technician. Those are all 6-month salary and benefits is $159,488. So that's a total of 17 new positions with one reclassification for a total of $1,446,701, or 24% of the increase I showed you of the general fund earlier. 7 FTE positions were requested. One was proposed for 12 and 3 for 6 months. So we did cut some of the positions that were requested from various departments. It doesn't look like it, but unfortunately we're growing and these are becoming critical needs. 11 public safety positions requested, 9 fire and rescue. And we do potentially, and we haven't worked this agreement out totally with Upper Caroline, but potentially could receive $470,000 in revenue to offset that from Upper Caroline over 2 years. So we get $470 twice, once in this budget and once a year later, and then all of that burden would be local. And we did obviously have proposed the drug operation, pharmacy operation position and one sheriff's position. Those are all 12 months. Can't quite read the bottom. 2 part-time positions and 2 were proposed and requested and proposed. Next, we move on to salary increases. The public safety, we adopted a public safety plan a number of years ago. So the plan increases $457,376. That's a 3% salary adjustment, which is pretty much matching what the state's doing, and a step. Constitutional officers, social services, and other employees not included on the county plan at 3%. That's at $100,848 for those increases. As you know, for over a year, maybe longer, a year and a half, we had contracted with McGrath to do a study, a compensation study, look at our grades, classification. So it had all of that in there. Phase 1 of that study, we would recommend a 3% increase to keep pace with market for all the employees on the plan for $343,700, and that would be July 1. And then also phase 2 would be then to place employees on the step that's closest to that July 1, which would be $309,000. So it's about a $652,000 to implement the McGrath pay plan. Then I recommended, and believe it or not, McGrath recommended that we split moving forward, doing a COLA and a step at 6-month intervals in her original report. So what we would call phase 3, would be effective in January, and that would take people for every 2 years of service, they would get an extra step, but that would max at a 10-step that they could go. And the cost of that would be $135,256. And then if you wanted to take that a little bit further, which is what's included, is you would use that same 2-year, you get 1 step, but take it further up to 15 max steps, and that adds an additional $51,000. So it includes what you already did. So that's just people that have been here longer, the further up. So we still would be capping some people. I don't remember that number off the top of my head, but 20 or something. 33 even here. So even if you did this, there would be 33 employees that have been here that would still be capped, that could actually go further based on a 2-for-1 movement of the step. And that number's not huge, but it just became, you have to stop somewhere. And that costed the McGrath pay study for the whole year, $839,568, with some of that not taking effect until January. Obviously, more of it would take effect in next year's budget. All salary increases budgeted for benefits is a total of $1,397,792, or 23% of that increase that I showed at the opening slide. As we move on to schools, a transfer to the school operating fund of $17,527,900. Transfer to school bus leases, $145,899. Transfer to schools bus purchases, and these would include air conditioning because now they're retrofitting air conditionings on the older buses, so that's $671,183. Transfer to the textbook fund, which is required based on the state, $236,034, and transfer to school CIP, $470,000. Total transfer, $19,051,016. The net increase of all transfers to the schools over FY 23-24 is $1,245,026, or 6.9% increase. This includes an increase of $834,662 to school operation fund, or a 5% increase for school operations, and this is 18.3% of the general fund increase. And then we got to go back and talk about things that affect this budget that you've already done, which are mid-year positions. And the increase from 23-24 of 7 full-time positions added mid-year in the amount of $502,358. And those were 3 EMS backfill positions, $136,115. 2 sheriff deputy position, which one of those was a captain rank, which and in promotions that were worked in with that, $186,045. 1 code compliance officer position at $87,904. And remember, this is all with benefits. And 1 accountant for reconciliation that we just put in as we've worked through these issues with the Treasurer's Office and the accountant reconciliation, and that's $92,294. So the total mid-year new position is $502,358, or 8.3% of the increase overall to the FY24 budget. Miscellaneous increases to make up the FY25 changes. Public safety overtime costs have increased in an amount of $578,864. These costs are made up of overtime for new employees and the new holiday policy approved for the Sheriff's Department during the FY23-24 budget, and that's 9.6% of the total increase. Leased equipment and vehicles, $495,000 or $350,000 more than FY24, or 5.8% of the total increase. Regional Correction Institution, the regional jail and juvenile detention, 13.2% increase, or $323,826 over last year, and that's 5.4% of the total increase. Vehicle fuel costs have also increased. If you experienced an amount of $210,000, $162,000 of that is the sheriff, and it's 3.5% of the increase, but I'll talk a little bit about that. for a number of years, and y'all all remember this, we averaged 5 to 6 vacancies within the sheriff's office. And so they were able to cover, because of salary savings, being over in their fuel line. But last year that hadn't happened, and it won't happen this year. So we've had to increase their fuel line to what they're actually using based on what we estimate fuel to be, which is obviously a guess, but I don't imagine it's coming down significantly. But it's not that they're burning more. We just had savings, and they were overspent in fuel for a number of years, but they had savings within their budget due to all the vacancies. Now that we're fully staffed, that savings is gone, and they were overspent in FY23. And so moving to, and probably be overspent again in FY24 unless we appropriate some money there, which we probably will do, or ask you to do. But anyway, so it looks big, but we're just capturing what's actually being used. Increase for health insurance in the amount of $113,253 over last year, or 1.9% of the total increase. So our health insurance cost overall of a budget, not bad at all. The proposed revenue budget, 94,341 coming from the federal government, 6,354,659 from the state, and then 60,490 and $59 from local. The pros general fund, 70,902,545, as we talked about a little bit earlier. We proposed a transfer from the unrestricted fund balance of $2,276,588, which is decreasing $467,193, or 17% from the FY24 budget. So we were up significantly, to 2.6 that we proposed out of the fund balance in the current budget. Proposed transfer from capital leases, $495,000. Proposed transfer to Caroline Detention Facility, $1,191,898. 75.3% of all local revenue comes from real estate and personal property taxes. This includes delinquents. So $45,607,855 of the total, $60,490,000 from those two tax sources. We are proposing a 6-cent tax increase. Basically, I'm proposing that as a public safety tax increase, and I'll show you on another slide why. It's to take the tax rate from 77 to 83 of assessed evaluation. The FY24 budget amount was $26,641,282. Proposed 29,285,017, an increase of $2,643,735, or 9.9%. 6 cents makes up $6,617, and all of that is driven by public safety. As we look at personal property, I'm hoping, and I was going to try to get some numbers from the commissioner today, but they were in Keystone training, and that this might end up better. But right now that they've got that decreasing $440,000, or 3.6% down. So we're not gaining any money in personal property, but I'm hoping now that they've been able to download the vehicles, and a little background information, who they used to use doesn't do it anymore the way they did it, and so now they're having to work. Keystone's one of the providers that can get that data for them, and so they're getting that all that vehicle, getting their file of all of the vehicles that we have from DMV run through JD Power, I think is the proper name, but JD Power used to do it and won't do it the way they did, and it was going to cost a fortune. So they've had to change that. But I'm hoping maybe we will pick up and not lose nearly $500,000 in personal property revenue. But that's the best I have right now. That may change by the time we come to public hearing, where I can come back and go, hey, they looked at it and we're ahead a couple $100,000 or more. But right now, that's the data we're getting from the commissioner. Why the 6-cent tax increase? In FY21-22, the county had an 8-cent tax increase. And as you know, even then I showed you in the math that we were 11 cents from being balanced revenues to expenditures. But since then, the following public safety positions have been added: 19 new firefighters at the Carmel Church Station 10 at a cost of $1,835,159. You know, we applied for a grant and we're not successful getting any of that funded. We've added 2 dispatchers, and they're as much public safety as the people on the street, because the one that are dispatching the calls from the phone to the people in the field. $106,538. We added 1 animal control officer, $71,186. 3 fire EMS backfill that I told you earlier, 136 and 115, and then 2 sheriff backfill, 186.45. So then now that we've already added all them, they're already on the payroll. Proposed for 25, 9 more firefighters for Upper Caroline. And it excludes that 470 revenue, so that takes the number down to 399,286. But that's because we're planning on getting 470,000 in revenue from Upper Caroline. 1 new paramedic drug administration compliance, 178,093, and 1 new sheriff's deputy, 156,268. That's 38 positions since we've had a tax increase at a cost of $3,068,690. That's well over 9 cents that would just pay for that. So I'm not here because I like recommending tax increases, and I would love to have been able to come to you and say, let's just, you know, fund it all out of the fund balance, but we're adding significant amounts of staff that I think the citizenry of the county expects us to have. They expect those folks, when they dial 911, to get there in an ambulance, a fire truck, or the sheriff's office and come help them, because they're calling because they've got a problem. And we are growing and have more people, and we have more calls. So there is a basis for why I'm asking for that, and I think we can show the public what we're doing with those funds. If you continue that, the debt service cost for Carmel Church is part of fire stations. In 21, the lease revenue bond issuance cost $97,414, and in 22, $438,130. So that's a total debt service of $535,544. And even though we've put a significant amount of cash in to get that done in Sparta, we did still borrow significant dollars for both of those projects. So that's well over a penny right there in just debt service on 2 fire stations. That one I can't see, but so good. But you can see real estate taxes increased from actual in 2020 to, you know, was about 22 million on up to the proposed at near $30 million. Luckily, we've had growth in our real estate with both housing that has still been ongoing and a world-class distribution, the Lingerfield building. We do, you know, have some significant projects on the horizon, but none of those have started yet. And so being able to plan for a whole lot of tax revenue in FY25 it's just not there. If it comes in, we'll be ahead, but some of that stuff takes a while to get built and developed, and seeing how it hadn't a permit been pulled on the million square foot here and some other buildings, I don't foresee that revenue being here in 25. I'm going to let you do capital if you don't mind, because I'm running out of talking ability.
Okay.
The right button.
All right. So the fiscal year 25 proposed CIP. So earlier we talked about some of the items that were in the general fund, and that was some machinery and a vehicle or 2. That was $495,000. So there is that. But here is actually the CIP fund. So our CIP for general is increasing a little bit over $1.9 million. And that's an increase of $841,097 over fiscal year 24. That is a 77.1% increase. The funding sources for those items, 3 sources: a transfer from general fund for $175,000, a transfer from CDF for $178,000, and then leasing of $1,578,791. Of the general fund transfer, there are some courthouse security upgrades, 60,000. We borrowed money for, no, actually we were utilizing some cash for brush one. Chief has said that brush one and brush five, the cost, of course, inflation has caused those items to increase. So we need, brush one needs a supplement of 35,000. The Sparta upfit is 80,000. Now the CDF transfer will pay for the registrar equipment, and this is actually voting machines for 150,000. There has been conversations this week on maybe a need for an additional 70,000 for poll books, but we do not have that confirmed just yet. Brush five supplements is 28,000. The lease would be for 10 sheriff vehicles. That amount would be $763,079. The sheriff's vehicles are no longer the Dodge Chargers. They are required to get some of the SUVs now, so they're quite a bit more expensive than what we've been purchasing in the last couple of years. This land acquisition is land acquisition for an item that we discussed in closed meeting last week. We would do a reimbursement resolution for the $470,000. And then there is ambulance 11 for $345,712. So those items total the $1,913,791 for CIP general. Next, we have utility items. Last year, we only had $600,000, and that was for water supply development. We do actually have water supply development for this year for the new wells of $600,000, and that would be coming from the water reserve fund balance that you reserved last year. And then we have a transfer from CDF for $320,000. That is $200,000 for the high school well building, and then $120,000 for Port Royal Water Project. And lastly, we have the Rappahannock Facility Project of $1,250,000, and then a public utility technician vehicle for that new position, and that's $45,000. The CIP Utilities Fund is increasing to $2,215,000. As I stated earlier, that's an increase of $1,615,000 over last year, and that's a 369% increase. The last CIP item would be the school CIP, and school CIP is increasing $10,141,183. However, that is inclusive of the HVAC system that we discussed earlier. The school system had requested $9 million for the HVAC system, so that is included in this year's CIP budget. This $10 million budget is an increase of $9,354,606 over last year. Again, funded in three sources: a transfer from the general fund, $856,183. We have the 5 school bus replacements. Again, as Mr. Cully has stated, these do have air conditioning. This is something that we typically pay for every year out of the transfer from general fund, $671,183. Desk and chairs for the administration office at CMS, $80,000. A van for transportation and lab school, $55,000, and classroom technology, $50,000. We also have a transfer from CDF for $285,000, and this is, for the last few years, we have been replacing the student transportation vehicle as well as the maintenance vehicle, and we do have a list of all of their vehicles as well. The student transportation vehicles would be $60,000. The maintenance vehicle would be $60,000. A utility van would be $50,000. Teacher laptop refresh, $50,000, and then a reel more for $65,000. And then the last project, of course, is the $9 million. As the school system stated, with the 2 additional appropriations, they have $6,166,880. So this leaves a need for $2,833,120 to get to the $9 million. However, if we decide that you guys are going to go with one of the other options, we need to adjust this number. Once we know that, we'll have information on what the borrowing cost would be. However, this shows a total borrowing need for the items that are presented in this presentation. The general fund equipment lease for $495,000, a CIP equipment lease for $1,578,791, utilities lease revenue bond for $1,295,000, and then a school CIP lease revenue bond for $2,833,120 would mean our total borrowing needs for this proposed budget would be $6,201,911. Lastly, this budget has not been advertised. We do have a regular scheduled meeting April 9th. So this would be the earliest time that we would have to discuss this. There's a special meeting that we could have the 16th or the 23rd of April if we needed to. Adoption would require a minimum of 7 days. So the public hearing for the increase in the real estate tax rate and the adoption of the personal property tax rate can be scheduled for the same day, which of course we would suggest April the 9th to be that day. The tax rates can be adopted and you can have the public hearing on the same day. Again, we recommend advertising the budget and the tax rates for the April 9th meeting to ensure that we can have the tax bills out, processed and mailed in early May for the June 5th due date. And this concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Board members, do we have, thank you for the presentation. Board members, Mr. Forehand?
Mr. Kelly, the second payment for the aerial apparatus is not in here?
Yeah, the 600,000 for the ladder truck.
Okay.
We already borrowed that though.
Yes, we've already borrowed.
I thought we cut that back because we were pushing a limit, if memory serves me correct.
No.
That truck's still a year out.
Yes.
Where did you get?
It was $1.2 million, and we put that in a borrowing. I'll double check that.
Okay, just check that, because
Okay.
I didn't see it listed out, and I thought we're 6 months in, and it would be delivered at some point from between July and July.
I will double check on
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas?
I just had a couple of, we're doing the reassessment now.
We are, and so next year, we will have to equalize the rate and/or advertise another tax increase if we don't. Correct. I meant to bring that up when we were talking taxes and forgot. Yeah, they're out in the field now doing that work, and the reassessment notices will go out this fall.
Okay, the fund balance increase last year, which I guess was 23, was 4 million and change.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's gone up the last couple of years.
It's currently 22 million.
That's a Tamika question. She probably got that paperwork.
I do not have that exact number for you. I can look it up. It was around 28. However, we took out, I believe, 3 million for the well water reserve, and then we took out 2.5 for public safety, but I can get that number for you.
So it'd be close to 22 then. I think that's kind of what I remembered. I just
Yes,
wanted
sir.
to make sure. Okay, and we'll equalize the rate next year. All right, thank you.
Mrs. Long?
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off.
I just would like us to have a little time to go over this. I think the ninth sort of pushed it. We might need to move that back. And is anybody interested in having a work session or just speak privately with Mr. Cole?
No, just, they couldn't hear.
Oh,
I'm not asking you to adopt anything other than if you could adopt a tax rate, no matter whether you adopt. If you advertise 6 cents, you don't have to, you can adopt the same rate we currently have. But we need to move that along.
On the 9th, yes.
On the 9th, because I've got to give that to the Commissioner of Revenue, who's got to prepare the book, who's got to give all that to the treasurer to get the bills out to the 1st of May. They're due June 5th. So you don't have to adopt the budget, although if you don't adopt a tax increase, that's going to obviously change what the budget is and, have to make significant cuts or try to take that extra $2 million out of the fund balance. But so the rest of the budget you have time on. You can have a work session after the public hearing, before the public hearing, all those types of things. But it's critical that you at least hold a public hearing on a tax rate, whether it's going to be the same rate, an increase. And like I said, if you advertise a 6 cents increase, you do not have to do that. You can go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, none, and just have the same 77. But we do need to have that really on the 9th.
Just the advertisement, okay.
And have that public hearing. And while you're doing it, you might as well just have the public hearing on the budget. You brought people out for the tax rate, bring them out for the budget, and you don't have to adopt the budget right then. That's not as critical. It's critical to the schools because they're going to want to know their number because they send out contracts in May, so you would need to do it relatively soon. But the critical one for everybody is that getting a tax rate adopted so that the Commissioner of Revenue can go to work and then the treasurer can get that stuff mailed out.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
I just want to make sure everybody realizes this is the first time we've seen all these numbers
Yes, sir.
because, you know, the 6 cents or 8 cent tax increase was news
Oh, yeah.
for
No.
all of us sitting here. And what that impact would be, and again, with reassessment going on, what does that mean? And I guess I want to look at what the cross-section of that looks like. That tax rate would go into effect in,
June 5th, December 5th, reassessment comes in January 1, you would set a new tax rate next year. I would
so
surmise me
theoretically,
much less.
next year, this time, we would know
Yeah,
what the
what
reassessment
so say the
was.
reassessment comes in at 20% or 15% or whatever, then we would tell you what the new tax rate needs to be equalized. So it would only be 83, I suspect, this 1 year if you adopted it. And then it would go down again because values have clearly still increased over the last 4 years since we did our last one. So I suspect, I haven't talked to the company that's doing it, so I don't really have any insider information other than values that seem to be increasing. Hanover reassesses they have an assessment office, mine's going up 7% every year, so values are going up on housing.
And the others, I'd like to see Mr. Bassoon talk about personal property and valuation of that. I know we've all talked about over time it was gonna go down, and I
Correct.
think we're in that slide.
Evidently, they think they are, but I hope to have new numbers, and certainly by the time we have a public hearing, I'll have new numbers on.
Well, the public hearing's only 2 weeks away.
Well, I know, I almost thought I was going to get them today, but they were in a training, and I couldn't drag David away.
So they think they know them in the methodology for what the formula is or whatever they're using.
They're using the same formula they've always done. They just got to run all the VIN numbers through this software program through JD Power ultimately.
Okay, so there's no change there.
No, we're not changing any methodology. It's just, did people buy more new cars or did the cars all get older? And are older cars now not as valuable as they have been in the past?
Because
Are they depreciating instead of, staying the same or appreciating, which we went through with COVID?
I thought I heard you say that there was a change in the valuation process.
No, well, no. The JD Power, we used to have a contract directly with them, and they could look up vehicles individually, and they could batch a whole file through there. They got out of that business model. And so now third-party companies are offering their services to do that, and still runs through JD Power at the end of the day.
Okay.
But it's not direct. And so that was what I was kind of talking about. They've had to work, and who we ultimately went with was Keystone, because that's our software vendor, so it'll be integrated into our package once they go live on Keystone. But there are other companies doing it as well, which they explored, but were a little more expensive. And raised the whole cost of evaluating cars. And because we prorate, they're constantly doing it. It's not a once a year
deal,
thing.
right,
It's a
monthly.
once a time thing for everything that we currently have. But then with proration, it's monthly. I think that they're looking at what cars have come in, what cars have gone out of the system, and what those new cars are valued at, whether they're new or used. But they're not changing methodology, just software and how it gets valued.
Can we do what we did a few years ago and pick like the most
Yes, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
common vehicle and last year value, this year value?
We will.
Or look at 3 years of value just to give us a trend of what's going on, because I think that will help, because you hear various stories about used cars are going down and, people are buying them and then
But then you go to buy one though, and I haven't quite
well,
seen that
I'd
either.
just like to give us a snapshot so
can.
we know what.
We'll put that same, we have that chart, we'll put basically a Camry and trucks and various vehicles that are still the best sellers and give you what those are, what they were, what they'll be. David will do that for us. We just put that together.
Yep, all right, thank you.
Mr. Underwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cully, the recommended percent of fund balance right now that we should have.
Yeah, by policy, 17, 18 million.
So by policy, we have to have 12% of our expenditures, which is about 14.
I thought we said 15%.
15 is what we target.
Yeah.
That's our goal, but
Where
we're
are we now?
required to have 12.
Right, where are we now?
Probably about double.
Right, okay. So the 6-cent tax increase would give us 1.9 million basically. And you're saying that we need 2.2 that could come out of the fund balance, which would still, if I'm calculating correctly, still would put us well within our margin for the fund balance, correct?
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
So I know we were, at 1 year, we were, when we talked to Davenport about taking money out of the fund balance and we got a gig on that.
Correct.
That
Correct. Right before COVID, we were spending out of every year we budget some money out of the fund
Yes.
balance. Every year, I'm shooting to underspend and gain more revenue than we anticipate so that we don't do that. But when you do that, you don't want to do it a second year because that could really hurt your bond rating. And keep in mind, still today, our one metric that is really good is our strong cash position, our fund balance. Our other debt borrowings ratio and assessed value ratio, those are marginal in a double A, but our strong cash position makes up for that and kind of averages, keeps us in that double A. And so, yeah, I would never recommend we spend too much money out of the fund balance or get anywhere close to our policy.
Right.
Because then we would no longer have that strong cash along with the more marginal ratings and probably our bond rating go down, which would then cost us more when we go to borrow things. Even these bank borrowings and things would cost us more in interest.
So 2 things, Mr. Cully. Then do we need to look at our policy, since that is our strong point? Perhaps this board should take a look at, because it sounds like we're holding on to funds that really should be used for something else, and really we're holding a strong financial position to make sure that we can borrow money at a good rate. So that's my first question.
I agree. I mean, I would, and I will talk to Courtney about maybe increasing that to, that will help us as well when we increase our minimum and our target on our bond rating as well.
And my next question is, you're recommending 6-cent increase. Knowing that we're in a strong financial situation, why would we not look at using some of the money from the fund balance and perhaps a smaller tax increase?
We could. So
Your perspective is what I want.
we're recommending 2.2. So you could go 5 cent. That would be 2.5 and change. And if you went 4 cent, then you're approaching 3 million out of the fund balance. Do I think we would need all that? I don't think so. But as I showed you, on that second page with all of those public safety people we have hired and the debt service we've taken on, we have added expenses that are real. Yeah. You know, the knock on wood, chief's pretty much fully staffed, give or take a person or so, and the sheriff is the same way. So that we're spending those dollars in that public safety realm, and that's what that's what we should be doing. Correct, and I think it's the right thing to do, and I think the public expects it. And I think while nobody wants their taxes to increase, inflation since 21, when we had the 8 cent, has been double digit multiple years. So year over year, cost for everything, for our utilities, for the chemicals we use at the sewer plant, the utilities at the sewer, all of those costs have risen, and we're covering them, and we're having growth. Now, like I said, world-class distribution is a big contributor to our real estate and personal property, and that's very helpful. But we've got that factored in now, so it's not growing again.
Right.
We've kind of got that expense and revenue there. This year, I don't have any of those large buildings that I know I'm going to get some money. I know Gary's promising me some retail, and I got some things going on Lady Smith Road, but don't have really a shovel in the ground yet.
No money in the bank.
So yeah, it becomes, from an administrator's perspective, it's a lot, like I said, for me, be Rosie, I come up here, you don't need a tax increase, and but that could catch you, and I don't want to be the one, even though I can somewhat short timer, that leaves you in that type of position.
Correct.
And so while I know it's not easy and nobody wants to think about it, I think the positive things we've done with what we're doing with the money, with the fire stations, the things that you can be proud of, and the organization that both the sheriff and the chief run, not counting what we do out in the field with utilities and all these other things that we do, trying to grow our parks and rec, and just those things, they all just take so much money to do. I mean, you know.
And our last tax increase was 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
21, 22.
21,
Yeah,
22.
So yeah.
And we're spending $3 million again on public safety.
Since that time.
Since that time. So that money's got to come from somewhere.
Correct.
I just thought maybe we could find a happy median, since we are going to have a reassessment next year, and I'm sure those assessments will go up.
Yeah.
That we could find a happy median this year, knowing that more than likely the assessment would go up and we would make up some of the funds in the reassessment and would give people maybe a different perspective. Even though we're spending that, we need to recoup that $3 million back to give us back to even board, basically.
Right, at some point.
Yeah. Right. And we did that, that's a 10-cent increase.
And what I would add with that is, and this is Alan's point, so I'll give him all the credit. We're not finished asking for public safety people. We're building a fire station that we know the volunteers are struggling to cover. So you're going to have an investment down there of $5 million or whatever that cost is. You don't want people riding by there going, there's never anybody there. So imagine, if not next year, it won't be long, there's going to be a request for 9 firefighters to go into that station to serve that area, which pulls and helps Bowling Green serve more of this area and not have to serve that area. So I think you can see in the horizon, every station we have, you're going to have at least 9 people in the not so distant future to cover the demands of life safety, fire and rescue, and I'm confident it won't be the last deputy asked for. Correct. With the growth in the population and the calls. So you're going to continue to add those. So it's not getting even. I'm just showing you where we're at. You're probably going to be maybe 10 more positions next year asked for, another deputy and another 9 to cover a new station. And so I think that's why I would have liked to say, well, let's do 4, I think that's where the 6 was a good number. If we can get better personal property number maybe, and pick up another penny there, then you could go down. Remember, if you advertise 6, doesn't mean you have to do it. Right. I've got more time to figure out, if we can find some more revenue, we will do it. And if we can find anything and I can come back and tell you, hey, let's do 4, I think we'll be good, I'll gladly do that. I'm not married to 6. I just had to have some sort of proposal that made financial sense. And so
for you, really, the 6 is our worst case scenario, basically. That would give you a comfort level that you could put a budget together that makes sense for the county.
Correct.
In terms of our needs, in terms of where we're going. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Assessment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I have no more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cully, I just have a couple of initial ones and then I will be done. The overtime I saw up in the public safety was 500 and something thousand in overtime. Yeah, 530. I'm just kind of curious, is there a way that with these hires that it's going to start to dwindle? Because that seems like a lot of money in overtime.
So 578,864 was the number. 84,000 of that is we changed the holiday policy for the sheriff's office, so 84,000 is attributed to that specifically. $90,384 is directly related to the 9 firefighters. So that's 174,000 of that. So the other 400,000 is there was an additional increase to fire and EMS mid-year for some overtime items that they added, as well as the 3 backfill positions. So every new position for fire and EMS there's a required overtime amount for them. And then there is just because of the vacancies are not there for sheriff, that increased as well.
So is that a number that we will see downward trending? No.
No.
Sweet, all right, that's.
No, real quick, the fire and rescue schedule has built-in overtime. So their amount of hours they're required to work has automatic overtime.
Are we able to pull that slide back up? I'm remembering differently than what she explained, so.
That's a David question. Can you get that? And the chief can give you.
And while we're waiting on that, maybe I have one question for the schools. They can address me. And I saw a byline for the schools, and then you don't have to come up. You can just. I'm sure we'll be having our work session. But I saw $80,000 for desks and chairs for administration at the middle school.
Is that administration, or I'm not sure what that was. Was that administration?
It said administration on that. So I was like.
Okay, I thought it was some desks and chairs.
Yeah, I was going to say if there were, then I got someone else that can buy furniture for you. But okay. All right, that was my only question. I guess the big thing while we're, oh yeah, that's right, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, I'm sorry.
You wanted to see the slide? Did you just pass it?
Wait. Right there.
So it's the first one, public safety overtime costs, increase of 578.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a couple of real quick ones. One, the first thing is we all need to understand, this is the county administrator's proposed budget. This is not the county's final budget. We, in the past, worked on it. I was here when somebody went through every penny. So we will work on it, but it's not the county budget yet. Quick fuzzy math, 6 cents is about an 8% increase. So if your tax bill is $500, every 6 months you'll pay $540, just so people get an idea of what it is. And last but not least, last year we said we were positive $4 million, but we also planned to take $2 million out of the fund balance, which we didn't do. So we were really positive of $6 million last year, right?
Last year, we actually had $6,328,991 that we added. And we had proposed $1,278,000. So actually, we were about $7.6 million above
what we said. And that's based on, I'm going to give you guys credit for being very conservative with the revenue side, because that's where the difference comes in. We've got a lot more money in the county than we expected, and we also didn't spend as much as we expected. So
yes.
That's a big key. But we need to, as Mr. Underwood has said, that's a lot of money we've got in the unencumbered balance that we could manage to soften the blow if we do have to do anything, because people haven't recovered yet. I know it's 4 years later, but they're still struggling with high food prices and other prices that supply chain people are still profiting. And my personal opinion is in some cases they're gouging us. But the reality is they're paying higher prices, so I don't want to put more burden on the taxpayers in the county. And I just want to make sure that $7 million swing last year, or 23, is probably an indication where we are. And maybe staff can give us a good projection on the year we're in now, so we could have a better idea as we approach the budget. Okay? You can do that, Mr. Cully? Yeah, you didn't move, so I had to put you on the spot.
I will try. I can tell you what we've spent. We're still working with what we've collected. We're better, but we're not there to where I'm comfortable to be able to say we're going to end with a significant increase.
We don't know where we've collected it, but we know how much we've collected.
Yeah, we know how much is, they can tell you what's in the bank.
Right.
But I don't know what that.
You don't know where
is
it came
attributed-
from.
Yeah, what account that all goes to. We do have our person coming on board April 22nd.
And you said there
they're
were,
still,
you said there were salary increases for constitutional officers?
That would be for their department. And, well, it would be the constitutional officers themselves of 3%.
Okay.
On the, yeah, okay.
Do we want to, is that all?
You know,
Yeah, okay, thank you. Do we want to set a meeting right now for a work session?
My vote would be the 23rd of April because I'm slammed until then. Well,
we wanna-
anytime that week.
We don't want to do anything before the 9th?
No, we back up. Can you please set at least a tax rate hearing on the 9th? You don't have to set the budget on the 9th if you don't want, but at least the tax rate, because that's important for the tax bills to go out in a timely manner, even if you're not increasing it, but especially if you're going to say increase it 3 or 4 cents or something, you would want that to go out as early as we can. And remember, they've been having some problem with the people that mail those out being delayed. So if you get in the queue late, they don't get them done.
Bless you.
Bless you.
We're at a disadvantage because we don't have this year's numbers as a guideline to see where we are. So I say that when we talk about the school budget all the time because we don't have it. We need to get that information because based on last year, on 23, if we're 7 million to the good, why would we even consider a tax?
I wouldn't want you to, but I can't tell you that remotely you are that good. And that's the scary part. I can tell you in math that we have expenditures that exceed revenues by the 6 cents plus 2 million, 2 out of the fund balance, which is a big number. Yes, we could be coming ahead, but what if we're not? I don't know.
We don't want to risk our,
I don't want to risk our bond rating over that because you're committing to those expenditures because the bulk of our expenditures, like most, is payroll.
Well, I've been.
I mean, at least have the public hearing. I would try to get you every number.
When we stop spending.
so can I
I've
just
been
get
here before when we stop spending.
I understand.
before we,
Sure, you have too.
Yes.
before we can argue about this or talk about this, but is there consensus of the board? Does anyone want to meet before the 9th? Mr. Forehand? For what? The 9th, April 9th, the next meeting, for a work session.
I can make it happen. Yeah. I'll just be late if it's at 4:30.
Thomas?
If we need, but.
I don't know that there's any advantage to meeting before the 9th. I don't mind, but I don't know that we're ahead anything. I think we're trying to buy ourselves some time so they can actually get the revenue numbers and where they go. So actually, the advantage for us, right, is we need to give the staff time to figure that out, which means we shouldn't meet until like the last week in April or the first week, and I hate to say that, first week in May.
But not for the tax rate.
No, but for
meeting, yeah,
I don't know how we set a tax rate when we don't know where we are with expenditures over revenues. That's the hard part.
He's covering his expenses from his proposed.
We don't know where we are now.
We don't have the December revenue.
Yeah.
I don't have 6 months of revenue yet.
Mr. Crowley, am I
barely has July.
correct? Can we have a meeting? I'm sorry, I'm tired of getting, not being recognized. If we have a meeting and we set a tax rate, we can lower it, correct?
You can advertise it. Once you set it, then I don't know, that's a Chris question, what you got to do to come back to lower it, because they'll send out the tax bills.
You gotta do a new public hearing.
Yeah, but I'm saying that all that work will be, the next day from the public hearing, and you set a rate, whether it's 77 cents or 83 or anything in between. The commissioner is going to run with that, develop the land book that then gets transferred to the treasurer's office. They do their work on it and send it to BMS. Anyway, a bill in place where the tax bills are printed and put and mailed out. We don't see it again. They proof it and all that. But
explain to me the timeline between setting it and the treasurer and when we can fit in a budget meeting.
That part, the budget meeting is separate. Once you adopt a tax rate, you can do whatever you want on the budget later on. But
Until June 30th.
Till June 30th, correct. The critical part is there is a code section that says you're supposed to tell the schools and give them their number by May 1st. So we normally try to get that done so that they can do their contract, so that they know what their budget's gonna be. But yes, technically, we don't have to adopt till June 30th.
And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Cully, but for the board to make a decision, we're working without numbers. You don't want to make a decision because you don't have numbers, but you're saying we need to do X and I understand we do have deadlines, but that puts us in a very poor position.
Agreed, because we normally looking at that same thing, trying to figure out where we are expenditures to revenue.
Right. So that puts us both in a very precarious position.
Correct. And so I erred on the side of, what if we have spent into the fund balance in this current year like we budgeted, and we're not going to come ahead positive? That's why I have to gamble on the side we better raise taxes to cover some of what we're doing.
But you did have a little leeway, knowing that we didn't spend it last year.
Or the year before.
Or
Right.
last 4 years.
Yeah, the last couple of years. It's been a while since we went in.
Right. So looking at history and looking at what we've done each year in terms of increased expenditure, as well as increase in our revenue.
Right.
Yeah. My guess would be, if I were a betting man, I'd bet that we would come back with a additional revenue balance.
Adding money to the fund balance, exactly.
Add it to the fund.
That is certainly my hope every year. I don't have any way of planning that it's going to be multiple millions, but on a budget as big as ours, a million is conceivable easily, and maybe more.
But see, your guesstimation is a zero going to the fund balance, correct? That's how you
basically, yeah, it's zero.
And we haven't done that. And so that's, like I said, that's my concern, is that we haven't ever not added to in the last.
Right. One time since I've been here, we went the wrong way.
Right. One time.
One time
So I think 12 years.
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
So looking at that, it just seems to me that we're going too far one way. When I have a very good feeling that we're going to say, well, we didn't go quite that far. And I'd rather, you're erring on the side of caution, and I want the taxpayers to feel good about what we're doing and what the taxpayers are doing. Because the message to the taxpayer is, you need to do more. But when we add money to the fund balance, and then we give a tax increase, we're saying the taxpayer's not doing what we need to grow the county. And that's the perception that I don't want.
Mr. Seeley?
Mr. Cully, what if we moved the tax bill date by 2 weeks? What does that do to everything?
Nothing, as long as we can get it in June.
I mean, if we
Don't move it into July, because then that's.
But if we kept it if we went to the end of June to buy.
Before. You can move it 2 weeks. You can move it 2 weeks. You can move everything 2 weeks.
And I'm saying that because I know the revenue and expenditure side, where the revenue came in and where we are, we all need, not just you, but we all need to see that. For what Mr. Underwood said, you don't want to do a 6-cent tax increase and then be 4 million to the good. But if we're at zero, if we hit it zero and we set the tax rate, that means next year we're going to come in probably not in a very good place.
Correct. You'll be going.
But if we move the tax date to 30 June and shifted everything.
How about move it 2 weeks to 15? From the 5th, whatever, 14 days, 14 days. Don't go all the way to the 30th, but.
I'm just saying, so that it gives everybody some time to look at those numbers and get a better feel, because we're as in the dark as you are.
Right, I agree with you yeah.
And we have to do
why
something
we're here
to have
this
some feel from where we are.
I mean, I'm not quite that much in the dark, because 6 cents is $2 million.
Right, she gave you that.
And,
right.
and, you know, we can, if everything held, we can handle $2 million out of the fund balance.
We could,
We could handle that without a problem.
correct.
So why would I want to put any additional burden on the taxpayers, knowing that I could really handle what's there? Now, the 2 weeks, I'm along with Jeff, and the 2 weeks gives us more time to confirm this, but it's kind of on you guys to get stuff from the treasurer.
But our problem is we're 2.2, how much are we into the fund balance in this year's budget?
2.6.
2.6
So that's
into the
to
fund
balance,
balance.
to
But
balance.
see, we were 1.2 before, and we came in 6 more.
I know, but that, you can't, I don't know that that's gonna happen every year.
We have real expenses this year.
We showed you, we've added in employees.
I believe all of that, but I still,
We can't ask for fire stations.
that's not
And then-
the issue at all. The issue is how much money is there and how much money we're asking
Added
people to
$10
do.
million in expenses.
We're gonna do a reassessment next year.
That's great.
So you're gonna.
That's great. So it's
gonna-
still gonna be a tax increase.
You know you're gonna
It's gonna
hurt
be a
people
tax,
next year.
it's still gonna be a tax increase.
So if we push the date, can we push the date for setting the tax rate 2 weeks?
Yes. And if you're willing to move
We
it
went
off
to
the
the
5th,
23rd of April.
If you make that a
Or-
motion, I'll second it.
I'm going to make, and
I'm the 23rd.
I understand, but let's push it
Calendar.
to a date after the 20th to give staff some time. Because that's 2 weeks after the 9th. So where do we go?
Mr. Cohen,
What,
Go to June.
we have
June
our
19th.
reconciliation person hired.
that's
they
fine.
get here the 22nd, I think she said, of April. When is Rex leave? 23rd. They're just getting near the 23rd of April.
Oh, so we're still a month out from that person
But we'll know
starting.
some numbers before we reconcile.
I'm just looking for some breathing room for everybody so we're not all staring into into the abyss going, what do we do?
Well, we definitely need more information
Working on some question.
based on the numbers. the
And I'm
treasurer
trying to be fair to our staff and all of us, because they're under the gun, we're under the gun.
Just get a motion then.
I make a motion, we move the date, and we need to fix a date, but move the date at least 2 weeks to give staff an opportunity to look at revenue over expenditure numbers.
Second, and it's June 19th is 2 weeks after the 5th.
Right, that would be when you would want to do it. Well, that's a holiday.
June 19th, Juneteenth,
Yeah, so it'd have to go the day after that,
June 20th.
unless that's like a Saturday or
So
Sunday or something.
20th,
That's a Thursday.
21st, 22nd,
Say what?
like June 22
June 22nd is a Saturday.
is a Saturday.
21st,
Do it to the Thursday then before.
I mean, pick a date.
Friday the 21st, just to.
21st, okay.
All right, the 21st.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, so we are postponing the first tax payments due because we want to push back
When we go to public hearing on that rate.
the public hearing on the setting the tax rate.
By
So
2
we can
weeks.
push back 2 weeks, even advertising it, in the hopes that in the next 14 days that we'll have our December revenue numbers.
I'm not positive of that, but
I mean, is that?
Got October-
I'm just, I'm
October.
laying it all out. That's what we're hoping and praying for, that in 2 weeks, in 14 days, we'll get what we haven't gotten in 6 months.
No, we get 2 more weeks to do, and you're right about that, but we get 2 more weeks to set the tax rate. We
Okay.
could still have the public hearing on the 9th, but you still have 2 more weeks to set the tax rate because you've got the bills to go out later.
Okay, I understand that, but one thing cascades into another, which cascades into another, which cascades into another.
You're right, you're right. We haven't gotten
But the
information.
crux of it is 14 days to get more data, so we can figure out whether we advertise 6 cents, 4 cents, 2 cents, 1 cent, or no cents, whatever. Okay, I just want to make sure, in my linear mind, that's where
well,
we are.
right now, I think it's not what you advertise, because if we're going to have the public hearing on the 9th, it's just time after the 9th to figure out what we're going to set the rate.
Well,
We want to set it on the 9th.
So we
We'll
got-
hold a public hearing for 6 cent increase, have the public come and talk about it, and then you don't have to make a decision that night.
And
We'd
then
have
we
2
have
more
more
weeks.
time.
You have 2 more weeks, but you'd have to come back for a special meeting, within 2 weeks and set some rate.
Do we need a motion to that effect?
I don't need a motion. If the consensus of the board, you want to have that public hearing on the 9th, we'll have it for a 6 cent tax increase, Y'all all good with that? If not, you can make a motion, I wouldn't.
We have not voted on the motion.
Motion on the floor.
Right, we just haven't voted on it.
Oh, yeah.
What was the motion? What did it include?
It was just to move the tax
Due
filing
date.
due date to the
21st of June.
Gives us 2 more weeks to set the rate.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
So we have a motion. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries.
Do we want to advertise 6 cents or 5 cents?
Well, that's the next motion, is we need to give Mr. Cully the ability to at least advertise a 6 cent tax increase.
Yep, that's why I'm bringing it up. What do we want?
We can always go down, right?
Always go down.
Oh, yes,
You
you
can
can.
always down. So let's go ahead and I'll entertain a motion for the 6 cent tax increase.
If I make a motion, I'm gonna make it for 5, but somebody else, I'll support
I don't
6,
even
but
know.
I don't like 6 as a number.
Come on. We can, it's Joe Torre. Can we,
I had it before then.
yeah.
What did you talk about me?
I said that was my baseball number.
Did someone make the motion? We can always go down.
Yeah, it's just for the public hearing.
It's just for the public hearing.
Well, we have a motion on the floor for 5. I can second that.
Do we have a motion? Did you make a motion for 5?
I did not.
No, he did
Oh,
not.
okay.
Make a motion for 4.
No. I'll second it.
All right, as I thought I asked once before, we advertise for a tax rate. We can go down. We
Correct.
just need
Can't
to
go
get
up.
it, but
You
we
can't go up,
which
but you
we
can
wouldn't
go
want to
down.
do anyhow. So we could advertise for 6 or 5, and if we wanted to go lower, but we can't go any higher. All right. Then I move that we move forward with a public hearing on the tax rate on the 9th.
The 9th, right, next meeting.
For 6 cents.
I'll second. So I have
Mr. Chairman,
discussion.
before we vote, the only thing I'm going to say is we did the same thing a couple years ago. We said that we were going to have a discussion about the tax increase. We weren't going to increase it. We ended up with a surplus and we still increased taxes. That's what I don't want to happen. If we don't have the right information, I do not want us to step in the same crap that we stepped in because it's unfair to the taxpayer. Now, if we're going to say, we're going to look at this and look at it honestly, based on the history of our spending and revenue, then I can support you 100%. But I want to make sure that we're taking the proper look at all of the data to ensure that we make an educated decision should we raise taxes.
And I would agree with that. And that's one of the things, we just saw this tonight. We need time, but we still have to advertise, and that takes time. So if we set it high, we come in and we go lower, we're fine, but at least we're getting the information out there so people know, they can put their feelings forth. It gives us time to look at things and for Mr. Colley to get us the rest of the figures we need. But we're not going to accomplish anything if we do nothing, because then we're going to get at a time crunch, and that doesn't lead to good decisions. So I stand by my motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Chair, the tax division in the House. So, Mr. Forehand,
Aye.
Mr. Thomas,
There's no way we need a 6 cent.
Mr. Thomas, just yes or nay? Nay.
Now you don't do it. No, huh?
Okay.
Why advertise? That's what you did when you did 8 cents.
Okay, Mrs. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Seeley,
I vote aye.
Mr. Underwood,
I would like to.
and I vote aye as well. So the motion carries 5-1. Okay, we are to the last thing I want to do with this is do we want to set when we have work session? Because we got one on the 9th, if I'm correct, with the schools at 4:30.
Correct.
So do we want to set a date where we actually have a work session dealing with the budget?
As long as it's after the 20th for me.
Do
Do we want to, all right, so we can meet the 20th and then decide if we need another one?
No,
20th is a
20th is Saturday. No, that won't work. You can decide on the 9th. That gives people more time to look at their calendar, because it'll be a special meeting, you
I'm
just
out
recess.
22nd and 23rd, at least.
All right, how about this?
On a Thursday.
I can do the 24th.
How about this? How about we, can we do Mr. Cully a favor and all set dates after, you said after April 20th?
Yeah.
So why don't we send Mr. Cully, can you send out an email? And then what we'll do is we'll pick dates that are convenient, and hopefully the whole board will be able to find a date where we can meet.
We'll do that. And if not, we'll take it on the 9th.
We can't make it the 23rd, so we'll try to figure that out. Okay?
We will do that.
All right, so we are to the point of, and we can bring it up at the next meeting to discuss. We are to the point of our appointments. Social Services Advisory Board, Mattapanai.
Cheryl Lawson.
Is that a motion?
Motion, Cheryl Lawson.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on Cheryl Alsop. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Community Policy and Management Team. Who was this one?
It was in the board packet.
Yes.
It was, lost it.
It was,
To replace Deborah with Mrs.
It's Lindy Pathak.
okay, do I have a motion? Do I have well, I'll take a motion.
Second. Oh, motion.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion?
Indy Patek.
All right, all those in favor say aye. All right, very good. Moving on to consent. Is there anything on consent that anyone would like to pull?
One, two things.
So I will, there's only an A and a B. So I will take a motion to approve. Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. We are to the public comment point, but we're going to take a recess. We are going to take a recess right now, unless you guys want to do public comments now and then do the recess after. Yeah, we'll go ahead and, let's go ahead and do public comments first, because it is right at 7:30, and then we'll take our recess after. So you can go ahead and talk about anything that is not a public hearing. Ms. Hodgman, we don't, I guess we have a policy here with no sign, so appreciate you take it down, thank you. All right, we will take public comments now.
Hello, how are you?
Just need your, very good, ma'am, we just need your name and voting district.
Jacqueline Richardson, Mattapanai. First of all, I'm very glad that I came this evening. I appreciate the wonderful conversation that was being had. I'm a little disappointed that we only are given as public 2 weeks to look at the budget. Y'all didn't get the numbers. We just heard about it as well, but we're going to have public comment on it in 2 weeks, which really isn't a lot of time for our community to learn the numbers that y'all just got as well. So I'm a little disappointed on that, that note. But I would, in your future discussions of the budget and the tax increase, I would encourage each and every one of you to come to the food bank lines that are in Caroline County and watch how long that line gets, 30, 45 minutes before the food bank line even opens, before they're even serving people. And that will give you a very clear view of how much our community cannot take a tax increase at that level right now. So thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on anything that is not a public hearing? We don't have a public hearing tonight, so.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ramey. I'm in Mattapanai, and I'm a new resident. And I got to say that some of these numbers are shocking, absolutely shocking. I'm glad to hear and see that you're taking it very seriously, because 6%, it's 6% over everything. It's not just this, it's everything. It's everything. And I agree with seeing the food bank lines, and it's disturbing, all of it. Everything is going up. With all of this coming, I would also like to encourage the board to look at some of the restrictions that you have in zoning that keep people, landowners, homeowners, property owners, from being able to make money on their own property. You have restrictions that keep people from renting out rooms, their extra space that they're not even using, land they're not even using. And if all this is coming, you might want to consider maybe taking an easier tone and a better policy to let people try and make a little side hustle to make up some of this whatever is coming, because it looks like it's pretty serious from someone who's new here. And it's shocking. I would really encourage you to look at that, because there are a lot of restrictions, and it's not an easy process to look at, like getting some kind of an exception. It is not user-friendly at all. So I would encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to talk about anything that is not a public hearing?
Good evening, Chairman Black, members of the board. Mary Hodge, Bowling Green District. So here we find ourselves in yet another controversial reconsideration of a major issue which negatively affects the lives of the citizens of Caroline, after a considerable number of those have voiced their opposition to solar farms in Caroline County and have seen that issue put to rest, or so they thought. Yet again, visits from developers to certain members of our board seem to have prompted the return of this issue. The official reason given is hardly one that will hold water, since the issue is moot as far as the General Assembly is concerned. The bills depriving localities of their right to choose in this matter did not pass, and even if they return, it is not germane to the reconsideration tonight, because if it passes in the future, Caroline ordinances will be null and void anyway, which means if staff is directed to work on these going forward, it is at the very least a huge waste of taxpayers' money. Citizens who spoke against this made clear cases why this is not a good idea in Caroline, from the disposal of solar panels, burden to taxpayers and localities monetarily with ruination from runoff and pollution on adjoining land, and most importantly, our groundwater. The unknown costs of reclamation and surcharges on our electric bills add up, ensuring Dominion makes a profit on these farms, because the only entity that gets rich here is the landowner, the developer, and the electric company, to the questionable business practices of these hastily put together LLCs, companies. All over Virginia, even as we speak, smart counties are sending solar packing, recognizing it for the destructive boondoggle it is. In addition, if you tune into some of the pro-solar consortiums, it is clear they see the end of their ride coming, and they even discuss publicly some of the tactics they need to use to bring counties to heel, which is what is clearly evident tonight. Caroline is #1 in their gun sites, and I've seen this on video. Why on earth would Caroline want to give in to these people? What are they promising you in these new private and individual meetings? And why were some supervisors targeted and others left in the dark? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Curtis Leacock. I'm in Spotsylvania Courthouse, Virginia. I'm the owner of Dysa Barbershop in Ladysmith, Virginia. Mr. Chairman, board members, I came here this evening because I'm concerned by some of the rhetoric I've seen pop up on social media the last few days regarding an Easter egg hunt co-sponsored by my barbershop and Urban Grid. Some have claimed that Urban Grid is using me, my business, and preying upon the children to advance their proposal solar project. Not only do I find this claim ridiculous, I find it personally condescending that without getting a full story, a group of people assume a young minority business owner couldn't have made this decision himself. More so, Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned that rather than addressing the business directly at an appropriate time, this group wanted to protest an Easter egg hunt where the only people who will be affected is the children. Reeve Ashcraft, who is a close friend of mine and works at Urban Grid, approached me about co-hosting an Easter egg hunt. I welcome the opportunity to put on a family-friendly community event with them. as this is an extension of the work that I'm already providing in the community. I've held back to school drives. At my barbershop, I've given out book bags full of supplies for the kids. I'm sponsored a nonprofit called Kicks for Kids that provides shoes for the ones in need. I've cut hair at the annual block party at Caroline High School for free for the students, and I also host mental health courses for the kids in the community who just need an outlet to talk to with licensed therapists as well. That's also free. Urban Grid's community efforts are led by Reeves, who I've known for over a decade. Rather than reinventing the wheel, he and Urban Grid have solely tried to support the commitment I hope we all have, which is building a better community for our kids. In conclusion, I'd just like to say that I understand there are different opinions about solar and how it can benefit Caroline. I personally believe it'll be good for the county, but regardless of how you feel, there's a time and a place for this discussion. I know Urban Grid will be welcome to the opportunity to meet with anyone who has questions or concerns. However, an Easter egg hunt full of kids is not a place for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on any matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak on any matter? Hearing none, I will close the public comment section. Oh, wait, okay, I'm sorry. Did not see it. What's that?
Hello, good evening. Apologies, found out about this meeting a little late. But as our previous speaker was talking about, my name is Kirk Harklow, Port Royal District. I am concerned about this zombie proposal that doesn't seem to end for the solar power plant. My property lies within 400 feet of the proposed urban grid development area. I thought this was laid to rest before. Just to rehash some of the things that were discussed before, this belongs in an industrial area, a zoned industrial area. As a matter of fact, it's right in the zoning ordinance, number 23, public utilities, distribution, transmission, and generation. It doesn't even require a special exemption. Furthermore, I was a little concerned because doing some research on this proposal here, it cites House Bill 363, Senate Bill 567, and SB 697. What concerned me was that these bills were first discussed at the beginning of January, but we've been doing some research and some FOIA requests, and there's been long correspondence going back even before January between Urban Grid and our supervisors. So I just wonder how genuine this concern is and this proposal is that a bill might pass and we're doing things because they might happen instead of waiting for something to actually happen. And why not just have an open discussion and not use this as a kind of ruse to say, oh, now we have to do this. Now we're concerned something might happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak on any matter?
Good evening, board. Kevin Collins, Reedy Church. I'm sure you guys are well aware of that. I'm here to express my opposition to the proposed adoption of an amended solar ordinance in Caroline County. It has come to my attention that staff and certain members of the board have initiated discussions on this matter, which I find deeply concerning. First and foremost, I must emphasize the utter lack of logical justification for jumping into the creation of an ordinance tailored to hypothetical scenarios. The fact that the state will not take action on similar legislation until at least 2025 renders any decision-making on our part unnecessary and unwarranted. There is simply no pressing need to accommodate the speculative interests of solar companies, especially when doing so could potentially compromise the best interests of our community. Furthermore, the proposed ordinances appear to be a knee-jerk reaction to Delegate Sullivan and Senator Deed's bills HB 636 and SB 567, introduced during the 2024 General Assembly. These bills seek to involve State Corporation Commission in the approval of energy facilities, effectively bypassing local governance. While I acknowledge the importance of considering legislative developments, it is imperative that we do not succumb to reactionary measures that undermine our authority as a locality. The introduction of SB 697 by Senator Van Valkenburg represents yet another attempt to undermine local autonomy in project siting. This bill, if passed, would severely limit our ability to regulate ground-mounted solar facilities and energy storage. It is evident certain legislators are determined to prioritize the interests of energy corporations over the concerns of local communities like ours. I am particularly troubled by the recommendation from staff to adopt an amended solar ordinance as a preemptive measure. This recommendation not only disregards the principles of prudent governance, but also fails to address the fundamental issue at hand. Rather than capitulating to external pressures, we should be steadfast in our commitment to preserving local control and safeguarding the well-being of our residents. In conclusion, I urge the board to reject any proposal for the adoption of an amended solar ordinance. We must resist the encroachment of state intervention and uphold the principles of self-determination and community sovereignty. Let us not be swayed by the agendas of powerful interests or outside companies, but instead prioritize the needs and aspirations of the people you are elected to represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? One more time. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I'm going to go ahead and close public comments. We are going to recess for 10 minutes. Is that good? And then 16 minutes, and then we will be back at 8 o'clock. All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene the March 26th Board of Supervisors meeting. Thank you. The next on our agenda is unfinished business. Mr. Forehand had brought up the towers as far as if we wanted to put, when the towers were being painted, if we wanted to put Sweet Caroline on them instead of just Caroline, and
just this one tower that we have to make.
Oh, just one tower, okay.
As actually, my thoughts are we do something different for everyone. We just, this one is something that's going to be ready to graphic soon, so.
Basic color the same.
Color is actually very nice, yeah. So, what does the board think?
I just thought Caroline County, since it identifies, see, before what we had was two first names. We had, what we said last meeting?
Sweet Caroline.
No, we said, huh?
Last meeting was just Caroline.
Caroline, yeah.
Caroline, Virginia, but Caroline's a first name and Virginia's a first name, so
yeah. It
wasn't like Caroline County, Virginia, it was Caroline, Virginia. And just after thinking about it, I was like, what does that say to somebody? I'm just asking. I just thought Caroline County, but that's just my opinion.
How does, yeah, okay, Mr. C, anyone else have any opinions on this? Or do we want the suite in front of it, Mr. Underwood?
This is just for one of the five towers, right?
Towers, yes.
This is the one that we can see right here.
Yeah, okay. So where we have a consensus is Sweet Caroline, okay?
Do you want to put the CO?
Mr. Thomas? Yeah, well, we'll need a motion, but yes.
Yes, I mean, I like that. I just thought maybe now since we're talking Milford, maybe some homage to Union High School or something like that. I actually was pushed in a stroller on the baseball field out here 60-some years ago, so something baseball related, but that's fine with me.
So we'll go with, can I get a motion then, Mr.?
I'll make a motion, we go with the script with the suite horizontal to the ground, not the angled.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is, and I guess this would be last on our agenda before the informational calendars, is discussion regarding potential impact of solar energy bills introduced in the 2024 General Assembly session, which was HB 636 and SB 567, siting of energy facilities, approval by the State Corporation Commission, and SB 697 for solar and energy facilities local regulation. Okay, does anyone, all right, go for it. And I can.
Sorry, this matter was on the agenda 2 weeks ago, but I was, as you can still tell, under the weather. We had put this on for consideration, given the bills that went through the General Assembly this year, and yes, we're very much aware that none of them passed. What would the county's position be? And I don't know that we recommended you do anything. Just our action was discuss and provide direction to staff. So there was a comment made that we had made a recommendation, which was factually an error. But to discuss with you, obviously I've been around 37 and a half years in local government. I can name 4 things, maybe 3 things, 4 things over the years of local authority taken away from zoning and from just general authority. One y'all are very familiar with that the public very much doesn't like is sludge. They renamed it biosolid so it sounded better. But wastewater plant sludge out of Northern Virginia was regulated by localities, and the state swooped in and said, you will not do that, and it'll be allowed and permitted without any local control. Single-wide mobile homes and double-wide mobile homes used to be regulated in zoning and agricultural areas by special exception. Those were taken away one at a time over the years out of zoning and made permitted uses anywhere in an agricultural allowed district. Whatever you called the district didn't matter. If you allowed agriculture, they were permitted And so that regulation was taken away as local control. And the most recent one y'all are familiar with as well that people don't like in their backyards is cell towers.
Yes.
And you cannot regulate cell towers locally any longer. And that actually was a federal law passed down to the state and that authority taken away. So knowing that history and seeing the handwriting on the wall at the General Assembly, I thought at least we should discuss it as a board. Do you want to look at not necessarily adopting what we had in the past, but look, is there some way to adopt something that gives us local control? If you think you can look down the road a year or two and may see a very large solar farm built in the county without any of your input and only approved by the state. That was our thought. I can certainly see that appears to be what we're heading for with the way the control of the General Assembly is and potential control of the governor's office in a few years, that solar's been mandated upon Dominion to do and to purchase and a renewable. I'm not saying I'm a big believer in it one way or the other. I don't own any solar panels. I'm just saying a discussion should be had by the board. Doesn't necessarily have to be done tonight, and we don't have to do anything tonight, but at least think about where do you see us a year or two from now if this local control is taken away. Currently, we don't allow them. And that's certainly fine, but is it worth at least a thought process to, we don't allow them and the state ultimately puts them here, we're not going to have any say as to how they are developed, whether that's with the ENS or corridors for animals or any of the other provisions that have been thought of by this board over the years. And that's really it. I'm not trying to force you into anything. It's not 6 cents. It's just, should we think about it? We can certainly just pretend that, and let the state do whatever they do. And that's what we end up with. From a staff, we thought maybe we at least ought to talk about it and see if we can make sure we get the best we can get if we're going to ultimately end up something forced down our throats. And I certainly have lived long enough and worked long enough to see the state do that when the lobbies are big enough at Richmond for locals to have no say. And the citizens that don't like it, but there's nothing we can do about it. So that's just my little speech. That's why it's on the agenda. I have not talked to anybody with Urban Grid, or nobody's asked me to put this here. This was because of what was going on in Richmond, and I've seen this movie before.
Okay, Mrs. Long?
Yes, this may be a Chris question or both of you, but my concern is, what I don't understand is I know they're finished this year, but if this comes back next year, it's something makes it further than it did this time. And do we have time to do something to get control? Is there a break in between a bill we might not like being approved, and can we get something in to protect ourselves and have control?
I don't think that's it. I think if you have things in place and you're in the process and you permit something, that would be your control. I think you can stay just like you are today, and if they put a bill in it, they're going to, if you don't have an ordinance or you have an ordinance and are turning them down, that the state's going to have some sort of review. And it could be just like it was with sludge. There were ordinances that regulated what the people that spread sludge had to do. Big one was adopted by Gloucester. They nullified those and said sludge is allowed. You as a locality cannot have any say where that goes, period, end of discussion. Farmer contracts with the company, and the sludge goes down and meets the state standards, the state inspectors, and at the time they did that, they had 2 for the state of Virginia. So clearly wasn't anybody inspecting sludge going on fields very often. And this was right from a public hearing we had in Middlesex and brought the state people down because my board was, very upset about it. So when they decide to take control of a matter, whatever you've ever adopted before becomes null and void if that's what they want to do. It could be as simple as you turn one down and they review it. That was one of the bills was going to be reviewed by the SCC. How that plays if you don't even have an ordinance to even turn down, we don't know. But you can't protect yourself. I'm not suggesting you protect yourself. The elephant in the room, we know there's a company that wants to be here. We know they're probably pressuring people in the General Assembly. Do you look at your ordinance as a way to make that a workable situation where you get what the county, the best situation the county can get, or we wait and see whether the state just permits it and you get nothing for the county. That's sort of the way I see it. And so that's the gamble you got to take. And at the end of the day, the General Assembly controls us, not the other way around. And that's what's scary. It would be nice if we've turned it down and it's gone away, but I don't believe that's the end of it. And if you certainly, six can believe that, and I'll be fine. You won't hear another word out of it about my mouth. And we'll wait and see what the General Assembly does. But they have a history of doing that when the lobby's big enough.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Forehand. Do you have an opinion?
I can go either way, but I'm adamantly against the state taking any local controls.
I think we all are, yeah. I mean, I think that's a very, very scary proposition for us. Okay, Mr. Thomas?
Well, I have experienced that very scary situation several times, so I understand. I thought that the best position for the county would be to actually have an ordinance, because I thought the General Assembly would be looking at places that did or didn't, and that would help their decision making. If we have an ordinance, it might protect us more to say we have control over solar as is. Maybe that's just my opinion, so that's it.
Mr. Seeley?
When they came in with all the other mandates, it didn't matter who had an ordinance. Ordinances didn't matter. The General Assembly is going to take control. So the bottom line is, whether we have an ordinance or not, if they actually change the law, it won't say if you have an ordinance, it's going to say it's permitted permanently. There were several permeations in the General Assembly, one of which was that the state corporation would have to hold public hearings just like we do at each locality. Of course, the State Corporations Commission, what I heard, doesn't want to come to any locality to hold public hearings. But more importantly, we approved 2 solar facilities in Caroline. We have 2 approved. They've done nothing with them. There's been no movement, no permits, no anything. So somebody can't say we don't have anything, because we do, and they've not done any building. So to say that the General Assembly, if we have something that's going to look at it, they didn't care who spread sludge, who didn't. They didn't care who allowed mobile homes or double wides in agricultural land. They came in and blanketly did it, and they'll do the same thing with this. They're going to come in and go, we're taking that away, which I've heard from several General Assembly members, particularly in the House, that local control is something they value, and you'll notice that they tabled the bill as it went to the House. So I think there's less opportunity for that to happen in the House than there is in the Senate. So my position is we just stay where we're at right now and see what happens.
Mr. Underwood?
My position really is that we really don't know, but we know there's big money behind the solar industry.
Yep.
We know that we're going to have to either dance or fight, one of the two. And that's a decision that this board is going to have to make. I think it deserves a discussion. I don't think we need an ordinance. I think we made a decision on the 2 solar plants that are here. I think that we decided that solar wasn't the best option for the county. So I think we can continue our discussion knowing that our position is we'd rather not see additional solar coming to the county. I've been contacted by a gentleman asking me he knows that I voted no, and he wanted to discuss some of the changes they've made, and I don't have an issue with them lobbying, but my position right now has not changed. But I think we should always be prepared. I think we should be educated. I think we should know what we're up against in terms of the position of the people in the General Assembly and we should just be prepared. So I think we should discuss, but if the majority of the board holds its position that we don't want solar, then I think that's the position we ought to continue to push, and we should do everything to maintain that position. That's my comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. Long, have you said anything, or?
I thought the good ordinance we have is a good ordinance. I like the idea of being able to control where something goes and how it blends with our county. However, if there's not an appetite for it, there is not. And if it becomes forced on us, we are going to lose being able to set conditions to take what somebody might put in as a, $10,000 secondhand truck, and with our ordinance, it would have been Mercedes-Benz because we would have had control over every inch of what went on, and would also have made some money for us, whereas with the things that, such as sludge that the state has set upon us, we had very little maintenance. I had a problem with a wildlife refuge issue, and it took a week to get a forester down to deal with it because they're understaffed and it's a big state. I just think things are better controlled in-house by local people and by local government and our own staff. However, since we do not have a bill passed right now, we do have an ordinance sitting on the books that we could pull out and revamp if the state definitely was coming our way. What really scares me is the amount of land one of the bills said that we could use, whereas we had ours and our ordinance where they could only go, solar fields could only go in certain areas close to transmission lines so that you didn't have lines passed all over the county. I think we did a lot of good things to try to protect the county, but now it's in the hands of the state, and we're just going to have to keep our eyes open and try to do the best we can. I will say, be you opposed of solar, I think the fact that if someone who happens to be a owner or a partner of solar and wants to sponsor or support a nonprofit group, be it the YMCA or the Ruitans or an Easter egg hunt, to even think that you would go and petition and ruin a day for families or children is absolutely un-Caroline attitude. It is not the right attitude and very disappointing to hear. So I hope that was all rumor and that Caroline can do better at voicing their opinions. Thank you.
Okay, I'll voice. My concern is, I think the other board members are kind of, I think we're all on the same page. I'm very deeply concerned about us losing local control. Someone, I guess Mr. Underwood said, the solar industry has deep pockets. They have very deep pockets, and if we think that they're just into one side of the political aisle, they're not. There are Republicans on their lobbying too, and we can bury our heads in the sand. I got to be honest with you, like if I had a choice of picking where we could put solar, as opposed to them telling us where we could put solar, I think one of them was 4% of the county. 4% of the county, one of the bills said 4% of the county they can go put solar in. Our county is large. I don't want 4% solar, and if we do, I want them to be able to control where I put it. You know, is it going to be moot? Maybe it's moot if they do the ordinance. Or maybe they target we just don't know. Maybe they target the counties that have nothing. But I'd like to have control of it. And the Senate already passed it. And I've always heard that elections have consequences. Well, what happens if in the General Assembly if we become even more Democratic? Well, but the Democrats tend to be the one who, I'm making a point.
There's solar right, you know, but that's a Republican-led group.
Well, yes, well, I'm just, energy
right. Yeah.
Okay, but it tends to be, yes. But my point is, my fear is the train is coming. And it's just like this RTA thing that we're dealing with right now. Like, I'd rather have a discussion at the table than being told, hey, the state, you're gonna do this and you're gonna be in this and you're gonna like it. So that is a major concern, and if we think, hey, if we're willing to take that risk, if that's the consensus of the board, we're willing to take the risk and let the state decide for us, well, I just think that would be a shame, because we would be giving up all local control. Because I'll be honest, you've heard me say before, I don't like the sludge on the farmer's land next to me, because it goes right down on heavy rains. It's coming up, and it was this weekend, goes right down into the lake where everyone swims. I don't like seeing that. I have no control to stop it. People swimming. So anyway, that's it. That's my opinion on it. And I think if we think they're going away, they're not. So and I don't know what some of the, what's that? Hey, who would have said what? Oh, they paid me a ton of money. No, just kidding. Yeah, right. Yeah. So they have not. I have not been in contact with them. So you can FOIA me if you want. I'm not talking to them. But the point is, the point is I think no matter where you are on this side, I'd just rather have. I think we just need to be reasonable with it. Just because of the fact that if we say 100% no to everything, we agreed to 2 ones, and they were very small. They were not. There was no major. So I don't think one of them was considered a major solar project. Yeah, they were both small. Yeah. So what happens if the whole state? And the other thing too is Dominion Power is mandated to have. That's a federal mandate, I believe. These power companies are mandated to have so much renewable by 2050, 2040. Virginia's going to have to pay attention to that. Okay, so I mean, then the state's going to come down on the locality and say, hey, how come you're not letting in? We have to meet this mandate. And there's another lobby that has a ton of power. I mean, Dominion has a ton of power. And my concern is there's another situation where more money's going in. Tell the counties you have to do this. So anyway, those are my 2 cents. Do we want to talk any more about this, or just put this off to a further date? Mr. Forehand, I'll take a motion one way or another. I just want
I just put it all, I mean, there's nothing we can do. The General Assembly is going to do what they're going to do. I don't think there's anything we can do except talk to the folks that are there. And when they got rid of sludge, when they got rid of mobile homes, when they got rid of double wide, when they said you couldn't regulate those anymore, they didn't care who had an ordinance, who didn't. It was blanketly everybody. So our best bet is to get with all the electeds we can that are Richmond and get a pulse. But for right now, I'll make a motion. We just be aware, but I don't see any point in taking any action.
No, I'm okay with not for now, like my vote will be yes to your motion, but with the caveat that maybe not never if the conditions change and.
Right, we can revisit if there's ever I mean, I just don't think there's an option.
If conditions change, you won't have an option.
Well, and we're not going to, we didn't have an option in sludge, we didn't have an option in single wide.
No, I'm just saying, if conditions change, you won't have an option.
I understand.
So it doesn't matter.
I understand.
But I will give this point of just insight. A couple things. When Dominion was here roughly a year ago, they said their energy mandates, and then looking at the solar, the megawatt generation per acre, turned into about 1,500 square miles of Virginia that needed to be in solar panels. That's 1,500 square miles. That is 3 Caroline counties. Okay, just so everybody that listens to this knows what we are speaking about and what their mandate is, it's immense. Okay, I don't see that goal as attainable. It was set by the General Assembly, and I think that if that goal were to stay, which I had hoped it had been gone by now, that there would be some other technology that is thrust forward to replace this, perhaps. We'll see. However, I will give this insight. My in-laws are from Rhode Island, where they have a mandate that 100% of retail energy is supplied from renewable sources by 2030. And there is solar, and Rhode Island is not a prime location for solar, okay? And they're putting windmills around some of the beautiful areas off of Block Island and off the coast of Rhode Island, which is a very small state, so they're cluttering up their views as well. But there are literally solar panels everywhere. There are 2-acre parcels that have solar panels. There's 5-acre parcels. You can't drive down a street around where my in-laws are without seeing at least 10 different micro solar fields. I mean, as small as an acre, as large as maybe 10. And then that's in between all the swamps and the stone walls and things like that. It's really something to see. I'll just leave it at that. And it's not what I had envisioned for this county. If there was ever solar here, my thoughts were that I don't want to have to see it. It's hidden. It's taken timberland, not agriculture land. It's flat. It's not in a floodplain. You know, things that we've all heard before over the last couple of years. But you know, anyway, just wanted to share those couple of observations.
So we have Mr. Seeley made a motion, right?
Yep.
It's in,
To table this until there's other new information.
so you have a motion. Is there a second?
I think Clay seconded it.
Clay second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
I didn't second. Someone else did.
Oh,
No one seconded.
no one seconded yet.
I can second.
Okay, so we have but now we can have a discussion.
I just had a question of how the proposal the schools gave us is affected by us not having a solar ordinance. And
I don't think there's anything about being on buildings because residences can put them on their houses without an ordinance.
Mr. McKenzie?
Yeah, I was looking at that during the meeting. I don't think that there's the one picture of the field. I don't think that would work under our current zoning ordinance, but one of the statutes that was subject to amendment in the bill in 697 is 15.22288.7, and what it basically says is it goes through the different types of zoning districts: residential, ag, commercial, industrial, institutional, and it says in each of those districts, if you want to put solar on the roof of your facility and use that to power the facility itself, that can't be prohibited at the local level. Now, you can't sell that power off into the grid, so I don't know if part of that proposal, the number included a proposed return on the sale of that energy. I don't think that would be permitted under our current ordinance, but I do think under this statute, putting it on the roof of the facility would probably be workable, but nothing beyond that. And it would have to be used to service that site.
Right. That's interesting. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have a division in the House, or did you, Mr. Thomas, did you vote aye or nay? Okay, so Mr. Forehand? Mr. Thomas?
Nay.
I will actually, well, go for it. Mr. Underwood? Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
Mrs. Long?
Aye.
And I will vote nay, so it still passes 4-2-2. Okay, we are now to calendar items. So calendar items, Mr. Tully.
I think Gary passed out his secretariat celebration at the Visitor Center the 29th, 30th, and 31st. Should be out and about, so don't forget to get to that if you possibly can. They always have a nice event there.
Why is it not at the State Fair?
I think it's been at the Visitor Center before, but that's a Gary question. That's where we normally have it.
Yes, it's been at the Visitor Center for the 5 years. It's been at the Visitor Center for the last.
I know, but why wasn't we having it at the State Fair? A metal event park, where the stable is and all that. I mean, That's my only question. Maybe I can call Gary and ask him later. Yeah.
The brief answer is that they chose not to.
That would have been part.
At the Meadow, they chose not to.
What was?
There's more
Meadow chose not
detail
to have it hosted.
involved in some of these issues, but that's the brief answer that they.
Is Mrs. Chenery's daughter coming? Is Mrs. Chenery's daughter coming?
She may, but she's not scheduled.
Okay.
But we've talked, and she's likely to show up.
Mr. Cully? Do you have any more?
Oh, we do. We have, remember on the 9th, we have a 4:30 with the schools to talk school budget before our next
This
regular
has to be
meeting.
the last 4:30, yeah. 4:30s are really hard for some of us to make.
I understand.
Do you know how much money they got from the state yet?
I do not.
Okay.
We know then?
I'm hoping.
Okay.
Maybe.
The calc tool was not the last we look. I don't know that to me, you haven't seen the calc tool yet. No.
Okay, the
And
next
that's
thing.
all we have. And then we've got to obviously work on a poll to figure out when we're going to have a work session. And we'll get that sent out to everybody with
Okay.
one of those doodle polls or some sort of poll to pick your dates. That's all.
Otherwise, if we can't come to consensus, we'll have to talk about it at the meeting next
On the
week.
9th. On the 9th.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good. All right.
Oh, wait, it's groundbreaking of Sparta. We have to pick a date for that.
What's that?
I am slammed the 7th through the 20th of April.
Pick a date for what?
Sparta's groundbreaking.
We don't want to get too far behind. They'll have the wall up. I don't know where Joey is, but what's the construction schedule?
They should have the pad site in April, but it's towards the end of April.
Putting toward the end of April.
Can we do, I just got to get to the 20th of April. I am every night.
Can you do a Saturday afternoon, like the 6th?
I could do the 6th.
Does that give you enough time, Mr. Kelly?
The 6th of April.
It's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10 days from now, basically, 11 days. It may be.
Which way is Mrs. Hall's head? Which way is Mrs. Hall's head going? Up or down or side to side?
She doesn't know. So that's why I was trying to go towards the.
There's your answer.
Would end of April work? After the 20th work better, Mrs. Hall?
The farther out, certainly.
Because it gives you time to plan and have
something,
stuff.
correct, yes.
27th?
It's just a groundbreaking, no.
Yeah.
No,
April 27th. April 27th?
April 27th is good for me.
Okay, let's schedule April 27th.
Okay.
April 27th. We have marked that down.
Okay.
Very good.
Got it.
Anything else I forgot? Oh, we do need to recess.
Oh, time, April, 11 o'clock?
Yeah, something like that.
11 o'clock?
27th,
27th of April.
Saturday.
That's far.
It's Sparta.
And we need to recess to the 4:30 meeting.
Yep,
Yeah, 11 o'clock.
okay.
I make a motion recess to 4:30 on the 9th of April.
We need closing board comments first. Anyone have closing board comments? Mr. Tom, yeah, we have two, so, closing board comments, go for it.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Schiebel and his staff. There was a portion of the Woodland Trail that we couldn't get to easily, that had the bridge, if y'all recall that. That area had been kind of left to nature the last couple of years, and they were able to clean that up and dress it and lay down this crushed stone surface in that loop. So they've added probably 3/10 of a mile, 4/10 of a mile to the loop, and got that back or got it in great shape, and it's already being used. And I found out not from Mr. Schiebel, I found out from a citizen that actually walked it. He said, "Thank you very much," and I'm like, "For what?" So thank you, Mr. Schiebel, and your staff for getting that out. And I look forward to some other stuff in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
I did have one. Mr. Cully, can you give us an update on the staff resources being used for the Bowling Green water system. I understand they're asking for a lot of our time for meetings and things of that nature. Can you give us an idea at a later date?
Oh, okay, yeah, we've been over there on an emergency basis since August. And so, yes, there are Mr. Schiebel's time and
I mean, not
Stanley's time. I mean,
not just managing, but attending town council meetings and things
right,
of
they
that
have been
nature.
asked to do that as well.
Let us know what that is and the time that we're using.
I will put a little bit of report together for you and for the meeting on the 9th. But yes, we would like some resolution of that, if I could put that out publicly.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes, I forgot to mention that, as many of you know, Ms. Pat Wright passed. Pat served on the Rappahannock Area on Aging Board. So our condolences to her family. She was very active with the board. She was our citizen representative for the county. We have since replaced her with another member, but just wanted to give our condolences to her family and thank her for so many years of service to the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I meant to do that in my opening board comments, and I'd like to see if we can't get a resolution for Pat Wright at our next board meeting. And see if one of her family members would come. And one other thing is I don't know if anybody else has been asked, but I've been asked to death about a pickleball court. Could we paint the tennis courts with lines for pickleball? Because it would be, I don't know anything about pickleball.
The net is a different height.
Okay.
So
Anyways, there is some.
The desire for pickleball courts, everyone's clamoring for them, yeah.
And
doing it.
Mr. Forehand, since you're on Parks and Rec, is there a place that we could?
Mr. Schiebel had a kind of off-the-cuff conversation, and this might be premature, just talking.
I'm not looking for an answer, just bringing the issue.
I actually have a little bit of an answer. Watching the boys and girls tennis teams attempt to practice on 4 courts looks like a circus. And it's nothing against them. They're dealing with what they have. I believe we're the only school that only has 4.
To expand?
It might be time to add 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts over there if we have a plot of land. Just start to think about it. There's land for it there, right beside where it's already there. But
that's school land, right?
Yeah.
No, it's ours. It's ours.
On the other side is county land.
Inside of the fence is
That's all
Parks and
county.
Rec land.
Yeah, that's county. Schools want to back closer to the school.
Right.
Yep.
We can bring you I don't know if I can get it by the 9th, but we can bring you a price. Set some money aside for, Parks and Rec with a cigarette tax. So maybe we'll see what the cost to do what you're talking about. Because clearly that's been a request for a long time, 2 more tennis courts because they can't get through their tournaments correctly either when they're playing there.
There's just a chain link fence on that side.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could take that section of fence down, add 2 more courts.
Right. Yeah, we'll look at that.
And then put.
Right.
Mrs. Long?
And don't forget the pickleball, right? If you're going to do.
We will. We'll bring you pickleball and tennis. Yes, all of it. Yeah, we'll bring you that. We'll bring you the cost for that.
Yeah, and it's near all right, and I actually have none, so I will take a motion to adjourn. Or no, recess.
I make a motion, we recess to 4:30 on the 9th of April at 4:30 here in the EOC.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are recessed.